The mansion trembled with the sound of a baby's agonized crying. Taehyun stood in the center of his private study, hands pressed against his temples, jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. The crying pierced through every wall, every attempt at composure, every ounce of control he'd built his empire upon. Baby Minsik had been screaming for 3 hours straight. 3 hours. Boss, one of his guards ventured from the doorway, voice barely above a whisper. Should we call another doctor? Get out, Taehyun growled, not looking up. His knuckles were white against the mahogany desk. The guard fled. Taehyun's chest heaved. He was Korea's most feared mafia boss. Men begged for mercy at his feet. Entire syndicates crumbled at his command. But he couldn't silence his own 6-month-old son. The irony tasted like ash. His wife, Hana, had been gone for 2 months now, dead. And with her, she'd taken every method, every secret, every gentle touch that could soothe their baby. He stormed toward the nursery, heart pounding with frustration and something darker, helplessness. The guards lining the hallway straightened immediately, eyes forward, pretending they couldn't hear their boss's son screaming like the world was ending. The moment Taehyun pushed open the nursery door, the crying intensified. Minsik's face was red, tear-streaked, tiny fists flailing against the crib bars. The nanny, the 5th one this month, stood helplessly to the side, wringing her hands. I'm sorry, sir. I've tried everything. Leave. The word was ice. She fled without argument. Taehyun approached the crib, reaching down to lift his son, but Minsik only screamed louder, arching away from him. The rejection cut deeper than any knife wound he'd ever taken. His own son didn't want him. Please, he whispered, voice cracking in a way it hadn't since he was a boy. Please, just stop. But Minsik wailed on. A soft knock interrupted the chaos. Taehyun's head snapped toward the door. I said leave. Sir? It was Junho, his head of security, and his tone carried unusual urgency. The new hire is here, the one from the agency. She insisted she could help. Another useless. She's already on her way up. She heard the baby and the door opened wider, and she walked in. Malia Okafor moved with quiet confidence, her dark skin glowing against the white silk blouse she wore, her natural curls pulled back into a neat bun. She was beautiful in an understated way. Warm brown eyes, full lips pressed together in concern, an aura of calm that seemed impossible given the chaos around them. But it was her presence that struck Taehyun first. Something about the way she carried herself, the way she looked at the screaming baby with recognition rather than fear. I'm sorry for interrupting, she said softly, her voice carrying a lilting accent. Nigerian, he registered vaguely. But may I? She didn't wait for permission. She crossed the room in 3 strides and reached into the crib. Taehyun's instinct was to stop her, to shout, to demand she back away from his son. But something held him frozen. Malia lifted Minsik with practiced ease, cradling him against her chest, one hand supporting his head, the other rubbing gentle circles on his tiny back. She began humming, low, melodic, achingly familiar, in a way that made Taehyun's breath catch. And then, impossibly, the crying stopped. Not gradually, not with reluctant whimpers, just stopped. Minsik's tear-stained face pressed against Malia's shoulder, his tiny fingers clutching the fabric of her blouse. His chest still heaved with residual sobs, but his eyes, wide and dark like his mother's, locked onto Malia's face with absolute recognition. The baby smiled. Taehyun's world tilted. Minsik reached up with one chubby hand and touched Malia's cheek, cooing softly. He nuzzled deeper into her embrace, his entire body relaxing in a way it hadn't since. Since Hana died. How did you? Taehyun's voice came out strangled. Malia looked up at him, and for just a moment, her composure cracked. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, her lips trembling before she pressed them together. She looked back down at the baby quickly, as though hiding something. Babies respond to calm, she said quietly, but her voice wavered. Sometimes they just need to feel safe. But that wasn't it. Taehyun could see it in the way Minsik clung to her, in the way his son looked at this stranger like she was anything but. The baby's tiny hand was still pressed against her cheek, his eyes never leaving her face. Who are you? Taehyun demanded, stepping closer. Malia's breath hitched. I'm Malia. Malia Okafor. The agency sent me. I'm here for the nanny position. That's not what I asked. Their eyes locked. The air between them crackled with tension, suspicion, confusion, and something else neither wanted to acknowledge. Malia's pulse fluttered visibly in her throat. Taehyun's jaw worked, his dark eyes searching her face for answers she clearly wasn't ready to give. Minsik yawned against Malia's shoulder, his tiny fist still clutching her blouse like a lifeline. He knows you, Taehyun said, voice dropping to something dangerous. My son knows you. I've never met him before today, Malia whispered, but even she sounded unconvinced. Taehyun moved closer, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of cocoa butter on her skin, close enough to see the way her breath quickened. Then why does he look at you like... He stopped, the words too painful to voice, like he looks at his mother. Malia's eyes fluttered closed briefly, and when they opened again, they were swimming with emotion. I don't know, she breathed, but she was lying. He could see it in every line of her face. For a long moment, neither moved. The only sound was Minsik's soft breathing as he drifted towards sleep in her arms. Finally, Taehyun stepped back, dragging a hand through his dark hair. You're hired, he said roughly, but I'll be watching you. Every single moment. Malia nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. But as she turned to place the now sleeping baby back in his crib, her hand trembled, and Taehyun noticed everything. Okay, pause for a second. Before we dive deeper into this story, I need you to do something for me. Smash that subscribe button if you're absolutely loving this Afro-Korean romance energy. Because trust me, what's coming next is going to have you on the edge of your seat. And drop a comment below telling me, what twist do you think is coming? Because I'm telling you right now, this story is about to get wild, and I bet you can't guess what happens next. All right, let's get back into it, because things are about to get intense. 3 days passed like a slow burn. Taehyun watched Malia like a man possessed. From the security cameras in the nursery, from the shadows of doorways, from across rooms during the rare moments she emerged from caring for Minsik. He told himself it was suspicion, protocol, protection. But it was becoming something else. Every time she held his son, Minsik transformed. The baby who screamed at every nanny, who rejected every touch, including his own, melted into Malia's arms like he'd finally found home. It was in the way Minsik's tiny fingers would trace her jawline while she sang lullabies in a language Taehyun didn't recognize. It was in the way the baby's eyes followed her across the room, tracking her every movement with desperate attachment. And it destroyed him. On the fourth morning, Taehyun found himself standing outside the nursery door at dawn, listening. Malia's voice drifted through, soft, melodic, heartbreaking in its gentleness. Shh, little one, I'm here. I'm right here. He pushed the door open quietly. Malia sat in the rocking chair by the window, morning light painting her skin in gold. Minsik was cradled against her chest, one small hand tangled in her curls, the other pressed over her heart. She looked up, startled. I'm sorry I didn't hear you. Don't apologize. Taehyun moved closer, his expensive shoes silent on the plush carpet. He's never this peaceful. Malia's throat worked. He's a sweet baby. He just needs consistency. He needs you. The words came out rawer than he intended. Their eyes met, held. Something electric passed between them, acknowledgement of a truth neither wanted to speak. Malia looked away first, her cheek pressing against Minsik's soft hair. Why does he respond to you like this? Taehyun asked, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. He was closer now, standing just beside the rocking chair, close enough to see the fine tremor in her hands. I don't know, she whispered. You keep saying that. I don't believe you. Malia's breath caught. Mr. Park. Taehyun. He lowered himself to a crouch so they were eye level, his hand coming to rest on the arm of the rocking chair, inches from where hers gripped the wood. If my son knows you, I need to understand why. She turned to face him fully, and the movement brought them breathtakingly close. He could see every shade of brown in her eyes, the way her pupils dilated slightly, the pulse hammering in her throat. What if, she started, voice trembling, what if some connections don't need explanation? Everything needs explanation in my world. Then maybe your world is too small. The words hung between them like a challenge. Taehyun's jaw clenched, but he didn't move back. Couldn't. Because Minsik chose that moment to stir, tiny hand reaching out until it touched his father's face, tentatively, as though testing whether he was safe. Taehyun's breath stopped. His son had never reached for him before. Malia's free hand moved, covering Taehyun's where it gripped the chair arm. The touch was innocent, meant to be comforting, but it ignited something. Their fingers interlaced almost instinctively, and neither pulled away. He's learning to trust you, Malia whispered. He just needed someone to show him how. Is that what you're doing? Taehyun's voice was rough. Teaching him to trust me? Maybe I'm teaching both of you. The intimacy of the moment crashed over them. Taehyun's other hand lifted, almost against his will, fingertips brushing against Malia's cheek. She didn't flinch, didn't move. just closed her eyes briefly, a shaky exhale escaping her lips. This is wrong, she breathed. What is? This. Whatever this is. I don't know what you mean, he lied, her eyes opened, meeting his with devastating honesty. Yes, you do. They were so close now. Close enough that Taehyun could feel the warmth radiating from her, could see the way her lips parted slightly, could imagine what it would feel like to Minsik cooed between them, breaking the spell. Taehyun pulled back abruptly, standing, putting distance between them. His heart hammered against his ribs. What was he doing? His wife had been dead 2 months. 2 months. And this woman, this stranger who wasn't a stranger, had waltzed into his home and turned everything upside down. I have business to attend to, he said stiffly, already turning toward the door. Taehyun. He stopped but didn't turn around. He loves you, Malia said softly. Your son. He just doesn't know how to show it yet. Don't give up on him. The words hit like bullets. Taehyun left without responding, but as he walked down the hallway, his hand still tingled where hers had touched it. The days that followed were torture. Taehyun found excuses to be near the nursery, to check on Minsik, to observe Malia, to convince himself he was only being vigilant. But his guards noticed. Junho noticed, and judging by the way Malia's cheeks flushed whenever he entered a room, she noticed too. There were moments that made it worse. The afternoon he found her in the library, Minsik sleeping in a carrier on her chest while she read. She was so absorbed she didn't hear him enter, and he stood there for a full minute, watching the way she absently stroked the baby's back, the way her lips moved as she read silently. When she finally looked up and saw him, the book tumbled from her hands, and they both lunged to catch it, fingers colliding, faces inches apart. They froze like that, breathing each other's air, until Minsik stirred and broke the moment. The evening she came to his study with Minsik, apologizing for the intrusion, but explaining the baby wouldn't settle. Taehyun was in the middle of a tense phone call with a rival gang, but one look at his son's tear-stained face had him ending it abruptly. Malia handed Minsik over, their hands brushing, and stayed to help. She guided Taehyun through the rocking motion, the gentle pat, the soft words. Their shoulders touched as they stood side by side, and when Minsik finally calmed, cradled between them, it felt like a family. The thought terrified him. The night he found her on the mansion's terrace at 2 a.m., moonlight catching in her curls, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. He'd come out for air, for space from the memories that haunted his bedroom. She turned when she heard him, and for a moment neither spoke. Couldn't sleep? He asked finally. Sometimes the quiet is too loud, she admitted. He understood that better than she knew. He moved to stand beside her at the railing, careful to maintain distance even as everything in him wanted to close it. Do you have family? He asked. Back in Nigeria? Some, but I've been away a long time. Why? She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then sometimes you leave because staying means carrying pain you can't bear. Taehyun's chest tightened. And coming here, to Korea, to this house, is that running away or running toward something? Malia turned to look at him fully, eyes glistening. Maybe both. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. The vulnerability in her voice cracked something in him. He moved closer, drawn by an invisible thread, until his hand covered hers on the railing. Malia, I should go check on Minsik, she interrupted, pulling away. But she didn't move, didn't leave, just stood there, trembling slightly, caught in the same gravitational pull he felt. He's sleeping, Taehyun said. The monitors would alert us if he needed anything. Still, I should stay. The word was rough, almost a plea. Just stay for a moment. And she did. They stood there in charged silence, the city lights twinkling below them, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down like a physical force. Why do I feel like I know you? Taehyun finally asked, voice barely audible. Malia's breath shuddered. Maybe some souls recognize each other across time. That's not scientific. Not everything that's real can be measured. He turned to fully face her, and she did the same. They were close enough now that he could see the sheen of tears she was holding back, could feel the warmth of her breath in the cool night air. Who are you really, Malia Okafor? Someone who wishes she could tell you the truth. Then tell me. I can't. Her voice broke on the words. Not yet. Please don't ask me to. His hand lifted, cupping her face, thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. The touch was electric, forbidden, everything he shouldn't want but couldn't resist. Are you dangerous? He whispered. Not to you, never to you. Then to who? To myself. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Taehyun's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. Every instinct screamed at him to close the distance, to taste what he'd been denying himself, to damn the consequences. Malia's eyes fluttered closed, her face tilting up infinitesimally, and a sharp cry pierced through the baby monitor. They sprang apart like they'd been burned. Malia's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with something like relief and regret. Taehyun stepped back, chest heaving, trying to regain control. "I'll go," Malia whispered, already moving toward the door. "Malia?" She paused but didn't turn around. "This isn't over." Her shoulders tensed. Maybe it should be. And then she was gone, leaving him alone with the echoes of what almost happened. Everything changed on the 8th day. Taehyun was in a meeting with his lieutenants when the first gunshot shattered the morning calm. He was on his feet instantly, gun drawn, mind racing through protocols and threats. His mansion was supposed to be impenetrable. 24-hour guards, state-of-the-art security, enemies knew better than to attack him directly. But someone had. "Secure the perimeter," he barked, already moving. "Junho, status report." 4 hostiles breached the east wall, boss. We've got it contained, but Junho's face went pale. They're moving toward the nursery wing. Taehyun's blood turned to ice. He ran. Down corridors, upstairs, guards falling into formation around him, more gunfire echoing through his home, where his son slept, where Malia, he burst through the nursery door, gun raised, and froze. Malia stood in the center of the room, Minsik clutched protectively to her chest, a heavy bookend gripped in her other hand like a weapon. Her eyes were fierce, terrified, determined. The window behind her was shattered, curtains billowing in the breeze. And on the floor, a body. One of the intruders, unconscious, bleeding from a head wound. Taehyun's eyes snapped to Malia. "What happened?" "He came through the window," she said, voice steadier than her shaking hands suggested. "I didn't think. She looked down at the bookend, then at the man on the floor, horror dawning on her face. "Is he?" "Alive," Taehyun confirmed, moving to check. "You did this?" She nodded mutely. Something fierce and primal roared to life in his chest. This woman, this gentle, mysterious woman who sang lullabies and smiled softly at his son, had fought off an armed intruder without hesitation. Had protected Minsik like a mother would. "Boss, we need to move them to the safe room," Junho urged from the doorway. "No," Taehyun said. "They stay with me." He holstered his gun and crossed to Malia in 2 strides, one hand going to her waist, the other checking Minsik over for injuries. The baby was crying but unharmed, tiny fists clutching Malia's shirt for dear life. "Are you hurt?" Taehyun demanded, hands running over Malia's arms, checking for blood, for wounds, for anything. "I'm fine, her voice cracked. "He was going to take him, the man. He said the park baby, and I couldn't let him." "You saved him." Taehyun's hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. "Do you understand? You saved my son's life." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I had to. I can't lose him." She stopped abruptly, eyes widening at her own words. Taehyun's brow furrowed. "What do you mean you can't lose him?" But another burst of gunfire cut off any explanation. Taehyun cursed, wrapping his arm around both of them, ushering them out of the nursery and down the secured hallway to his private quarters. His guards flanked them, weapons drawn, until they were safely behind the reinforced door of his bedroom. The room was designed to withstand a siege. Bulletproof windows, reinforced walls, a hidden arsenal. Taehyun locked them inside and immediately moved to the security panel, pulling up camera feeds throughout the mansion. "How many?" Malia asked quietly, trying to soothe a still-crying Minsik. "4 that we know of. My men are handling it." But his jaw was tight. Someone had gotten intelligence. Someone close. This was an inside job. He turned to find Malia sitting on the edge of his bed, rocking Minsik gently, humming that same melody she always did. The lullaby that made his son calm. The lullaby that song, he said suddenly. "Where did you learn it?" Malia's humming stopped. Her eyes found his across the room, and in them he saw fear. It's a song my friend used to sing." "Your friend?" His voice was flat. "Yes." "What was her name?" Malia's arms tightened around Minsik. "Why does it matter?" "Because my wife used to hum that same melody." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "And now you're in my home, singing it to my son, and he responds to you like..." His voice broke. "Like you're her." "I'm not her," Malia whispered desperately. "Then who are you?" Before she could answer, Minsik's crying intensified. Not from fear this time, but exhaustion and overstimulation. Malia stood, pacing, trying everything, but the baby was inconsolable. Let me try, Taehyun said, reaching out. Malia hesitated, then carefully transferred Minsik to his father's arms. The moment stretched between them, their bodies close, hands touching as they passed the precious weight between them. And then something remarkable happened. Minsik didn't reject him. The baby cried. Yes, but his tiny hand grabbed onto Taehyun's shirt, holding on. Not pushing away, not screaming louder, just holding on. He's getting used to you, Malia said softly, her hand coming to rest on Taehyun's shoulder. Keep walking. Rock him like this. She demonstrated, her body pressed against his side, guiding his movements. They walked together, a strange, beautiful unit, until gradually Minsik's cries faded to whimpers. Taehyun looked down at his son, really looked, and felt his heart crack open. This tiny human, this piece of Hana, this miracle he'd been too afraid and too angry to fully embrace. I'm sorry, he whispered to Minsik. I'm so sorry I didn't know how to. His voice broke. And then, impossibly, he felt Malia's arms wrap around both of them from behind, her cheek pressing against his shoulder, her presence steadying him through the emotional storm. You're doing it now, she breathed. That's what matters. They stood like that, the three of them, as gunfire echoed distantly through the mansion. It should have been terrifying. It should have felt wrong. But instead, it felt like coming home to something he didn't know he'd lost. After several minutes, Taehyun's phone buzzed. Junho's text, secured. 4 down. Interrogating. Relief flooded through him, but he didn't move. Didn't want to shatter this moment. It's over, he said quietly. Malia pulled back, putting distance between them. That's good. But they both knew he wasn't just talking about the attack. I need answers? Malia. I know. Can't they wait? She looked at him with such sadness it hurt. No, they can't. Not anymore. Then tell me, please. She opened her mouth, closed it, emotions warring across her beautiful face. Finally, she whispered, Hana was my best friend. The world stopped. What? We met in university, in London. We were roommates for 3 years. Malia's voice broke. She was like a sister to me. Taehyun staggered back, nearly losing his grip on Minsik. You knew her, you knew Hana, and you didn't tell me? You came into my home, took care of our son, and... I didn't know how, Malia cried. When she died, I was across the world. I found out weeks late, and when I saw the job posting, I thought maybe I could. Could what? Spy on me? Take her place? Help. The word came out as a shout. I thought I could help. Hana told me everything about Minsik. Every song she sang, every way she held him. She sent me videos and photos, and tears streamed down her face now. When I held him, and he recognized those things, I couldn't just leave. He needed someone who knew his mother, who could give him pieces of her. Taehyun's mind reeled. Everything he'd felt, everything he'd feared, it all made horrible, beautiful sense. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Because I saw how you looked at me that first day, like you were searching for her in me. And I knew if I told you the truth, you'd either push me away or... She stopped, swallowing hard. Or pull me closer for all the wrong reasons. And I couldn't handle either. So you lied. I omitted. There's a difference. Not to me, there isn't. Minsik, startled by his father's raised voice, began crying again. This time, he reached his little arms toward Malia, whimpering. The rejection stung, but Taehyun passed him over, watching as his son immediately calmed in her embrace. He knows, Taehyun said hollowly. Somehow he knows you carry pieces of her. Malia pressed her lips to Minsik's forehead, fresh tears falling. Maybe children understand love better than we do. They don't question where it comes from. They just feel it. Is that what this is? Love? The question hung between them, loaded with more than he meant to reveal. Malia's eyes lifted to his, and in them he saw the answer before she spoke it. I don't know what this is, she whispered. But it terrifies me. Me too. They stared at each other across the small space of his bedroom. Her holding his son, him feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under him. There was still so much unspoken. So many questions. But the most pressing one clawed its way out of his throat. Did Hana suffer? When she died? Malia's face crumbled. I don't know. I wasn't there. And that's something I'll have to live with forever. Before Taehyun could respond, before he could ask more, Minsik did something that stopped them both cold. The baby reached up, patted Malia's wet cheek, and whispered his first word. Oma. Mother. Malia's sob was broken, anguished, beautiful. Taehyun felt his own eyes burn with tears he hadn't let himself cry since Hana's funeral. He doesn't understand, Malia choked out. He's confused. Or maybe he knows exactly what he's saying, Taehyun said roughly. Maybe he knows you're the closest thing to her he has left. Their eyes locked, and the truth neither wanted to face crashed over them like a wave. This was bigger than attraction, bigger than secrets, bigger than two broken people finding solace in each other. This was about a little boy who'd lost his mother and found pieces of her in the arms of a stranger who wasn't really a stranger at all. The next 2 days were a masterclass in tension. Taehyun threw himself into hunting down who orchestrated the attack. Interrogations. Threats. Following paper trails that led to a rival syndicate trying to make a power play. He was ruthless, efficient, cold. Everything the world expected from him. But at night, when the mansion was quiet and Minsik slept, he found himself outside the nursery door again. Listening to Malia sing. Watching her through the crack, moonlight painting her in shades of silver and shadow. She'd been Hana's best friend. The knowledge twisted through him like barbed wire. Every interaction they'd had replayed in his mind with new context, the way she knew exactly how to soothe Minsik, the lullaby, the gentle techniques. It wasn't magic. It was memory. Hana's memory passed through her to their son. But it was more than that, too. He wasn't blind. What he felt for Malia wasn't just gratitude or projection. It was real, raw, dangerous. And it made him feel guilty and alive in equal measure. On the third night after the attack, he found something that changed everything. He was in Hana's old office, the room he'd locked after her death, unable to face her things. But tonight, driven by Malia's revelation, he forced himself inside. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Her favorite books, her art supplies, her laptop, and a notebook. Small, leather-bound. Tucked in her desk drawer beneath old receipts and sketches, Taehyun picked it up with shaking hands and opened it. Hana's handwriting covered the pages, notes about Minsik's development, shopping lists, random thoughts. And then, 2 months before she died, Malia called today. God, I miss her. She's the only one who knows me, really knows me. Not the MAFIA wife, not the perfect daughter, just me. Taehyun's breath caught. He flipped forward. I told her about Minsik's smile, how he does this thing where he scrunches his nose before he laughs. She said she can't wait to meet him. I want that so badly. I want my best friend to hold my son, but how can I ask that of her? How can I pull her into this world? More pages, more entries. And then, 1 week before her death, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. And now they know. If something happens to me, I need Malia to know the truth. I need her to protect my baby. I recorded everything. I just pray she never has to watch it. Taehyun's hands trembled. He flipped through the remaining pages frantically, but there was nothing else. Just that cryptic, terrifying entry. What mistake? Who knew? Recorded what? He grabbed the notebook and stormed toward the nursery. Malia was alone. Minsik slept peacefully in his crib, the baby monitor's soft static the only sound. She sat in the rocking chair, staring out the window at the Seoul skyline, her phone clutched in her hands. She didn't notice Taehyun enter until he spoke. What truth did Hana want you to know? She jumped, spinning around, eyes wide. What? He held up the notebook. I found this. She wrote about you, about making a mistake, about recording something. What did she mean? Malia's face drained of color. I don't know. Don't lie to me. His voice rose, and he forced himself to lower it, mindful of the sleeping baby. No more lies, Malia. What secret was my wife keeping? Tears filled her eyes. I don't know. She never told me. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and she looked down at it, face crumbling. What? Taehyun demanded. What is it? She turned the phone so he could see the screen. A message from an unknown number. Did you tell him the truth yet? Time's running out, Malia. Ice flooded his veins. Who sent that? I don't know. How long have you been getting these messages? Since I arrived, Malia whispered. 3 days after I started working here. Taehyun moved closer, taking the phone from her trembling hands, scrolling through the message thread. There were dozens, all from the same unknown number, all cryptic, all threatening in the most subtle way possible. She would want you to tell him. The baby deserves to know the truth. Don't make the same mistake she did. Secrets killed her. Don't let them kill you too. Why didn't you tell me? Taehyun's voice was dangerously quiet, because I didn't know what truth they were talking about. Malia stood, wrapping her arms around herself. Hana and I were best friends, yes, but the last year before she died, she became distant. She stopped calling as much, stopped confiding in me. I thought maybe, her voice broke, I thought maybe she didn't need me anymore, that her life here with you and Minsik was enough. But that wasn't it. No. Malia's eyes glistened. After she died, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a key and a note in her handwriting. It said, "If you're reading this, I'm gone." The key is to a safety deposit box at Seoul National Bank. Branch 47, Box 1103. Inside is everything you need to know. Protect him, Malia. Protect my son. I'm sorry for what I'm about to ask of you. The room spun. You have a key to a safety deposit box filled with my wife's secrets, and you didn't think to mention this? I was scared, Malia shouted, then immediately covered her mouth, glancing at the crib. Minsik stirred but didn't wake. She lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. I was terrified, Taehyun. I got that package 2 weeks before I saw the job posting. I didn't know what was in that box. I didn't know if it would put me in danger, or you, or Minsik. So I came here first, to see, to understand, to figure out if I could trust you. Trust me? I'm his father. You're also a mafia boss who terrifies entire cities. The words hung between them like shattered glass. Hana loved you, but she was also afraid of your world. She told me that. She said there were things you could never know because knowing would put you in an impossible position. And now she's dead, and someone is sending me messages, and I don't know who to trust. Her phone buzzed again. They both looked down. The box won't stay secret forever. He's looking for it too. Taehyun's blood went cold. He? Who's he? I don't know, Malia breathed, terror evident in every syllable. Before Taehyun could respond, his own phone rang. Junho. He answered immediately. Boss, we have a problem. What kind of problem? We finished interrogating the last attacker. He finally talked. Junho's voice was grim. They weren't after you. They were specifically ordered to take the baby and search for documents. Something about insurance Hana left behind. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. Someone knows about the safety deposit box. What safety deposit box? Taehyun ignored the question. Increase security. Triple the guards around the nursery. No one in or out without my explicit approval. And Junho, find out everything you can about Seoul National Bank, Branch 47. He ended the call and turned to Malia. We're going to that bank. First thing tomorrow morning. What if it's a trap? Then we spring it, together. He moved closer, his hands framing her face, forcing her to look at him. I know you're scared. I know this is bigger than either of us expected, but my wife is dead. Someone is targeting my son, and you're the only connection I have to understanding why. I need you to trust me now. I do, Malia whispered. That's what scares me most. His thumb brushed her cheek, catching a tear. Why? Because trusting you means caring about you, and caring about you means I have something else to lose. The admission broke something open between them. Taehyun's forehead dropped to rest against hers, both of them breathing hard, caught in the gravity of too many emotions and too many secrets. I can't lose you either, he breathed. Either of you. And I don't know when that became true, but it is. Malia's hands came up to clutch his wrists where he held her face. This is impossible. Nothing about my life has ever been possible. Taehyun, whatever she was going to say was cut off by Minsik's cry. Not distressed, just awake and wanting attention. They pulled apart slowly, reluctantly, reality crashing back. Malia moved to the crib, lifting the baby with practiced ease. Minsik immediately smiled at her, then looked past her shoulder and saw his father. Instead of crying, he reached out his little arms toward Taehyun. It was the first time. The very first time his son had reached for him voluntarily, with want rather than need, with trust rather than desperation. Taehyun moved forward as if in a dream, taking Minsik into his arms. The baby settled against his chest, tiny hand fisting in his expensive shirt, completely content. He trusts you now? Malia said softly, wonder in her voice. Because you taught him to. Taehyun looked at her over their son's head. You gave me this gift. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever we find in that box, I need you to know I'm grateful for everything you've done, everything you are. Fresh tears slipped down Malia's cheeks. Don't say that. Not yet. Not until you know everything. What could possibly be in that box that would change how I feel? Her expression turned agonized. I don't know. And that's what terrifies me. They stood there, the three of them in the quiet nursery, suspended in a moment of fragile peace before everything inevitably shattered. The next morning came too quickly. Taehyun had barely slept, his mind racing through scenarios and possibilities. At dawn, he showered and dressed in a black suit, armor for whatever battle was coming. When he emerged from his room, he found Malia waiting in the hallway, Minsik strapped to her chest in a carrier. You're bringing him? Taehyun asked. I'm not leaving him here. Not after that attack. Not with someone watching us. He couldn't argue with that logic. My car is bulletproof. Junho will drive. 4 guards will follow us. Malia nodded, face set with determination despite the fear in her eyes. The drive to the bank was tense and silent. Minsik slept against Malia's chest, oblivious to the storm surrounding him. Taehyun kept glancing at them, this woman and his son, both of whom had become inexplicably vital to his existence in less than 2 weeks. Seoul National Bank, Branch 47 was a small, discreet building in a business district, the kind of place that catered to people who valued privacy above all else. Taehyun's security detail cleared the area first before allowing them inside. The bank manager, a nervous man who clearly recognized who Taehyun was, ushered them immediately to the vault area without questions. Box 1103, Malia said quietly, pulling the key from her purse. They descended into the vault, the manager leaving them alone per Taehyun's quiet but firm instruction. The rows of safety deposit boxes gleamed under fluorescent lights, cold and impersonal. Malia's hand shook as she inserted the key into box 1103. It turned with a soft click. She pulled out the long metal drawer and set it on the examination table in the center of the room. Inside was a single item, a smartphone, Hana's smartphone, the one that had been missing after her death, the one Taehyun had assumed was destroyed in the accident that killed her. Except it wasn't an accident. He knew that now, even if he hadn't wanted to admit it. "Turn it on," he said hoarsely. Malia pressed the power button with trembling fingers. The screen lit up, battery somehow still holding a charge. And there, on the home screen, was a single video file labeled, "For Malia Okafor." Malia's sob was immediate and broken. I can't watch. We have to." Taehyun moved behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other stroking Minsik's sleeping head. "Whatever she wanted you to know, we face it together." Malia nodded, tears streaming down her face, and pressed play. The screen filled with Hana's face. Taehyun's breath stopped. There she was, his wife, alive on this small screen, even though he'd buried her 2 months ago. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale, but she was trying to smile. "Malia," Hana's recorded voice began, thick with emotion. "If you're watching this, they're coming for me." The video continued, but Taehyun couldn't hear anything over the roaring in his ears. "They're coming for me. Not an accident, not chance. Murder." He forced himself to focus as Hana continued speaking. "I found something I wasn't supposed to find. Evidence of corruption that goes higher than even Taehyun knows. Names, dates, transactions, people in his organization working with the police, with the government, with rival gangs. A conspiracy so big that exposing it would destroy everything." Hana's face crumpled. "I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to tell my husband. But they threatened Minsik. They said if I spoke, if I went to Taehyun, they'd kill our baby. So I stayed quiet. I gathered evidence. I made copies. And I'm sending this phone to you, my dearest friend, because you're the only one I trust completely." Malia let out a broken sob, and Taehyun's hand tightened on her shoulder. Hana wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. "If something happens to me, and I think it will, I need you to protect my son, not just physically, but emotionally. Taehyun is a good man, but this world has hardened him. Minsik will need someone who can teach him softness, gentleness, love without violence. That's you, Malia. That's always been you." She took a shaky breath. "The evidence is all here on this phone. Every file, every recording, every name. Take it to someone you trust. Expose them. Burn it all down if you have to. But please," her voice broke completely, "please protect my baby. Tell him his mother loved him more than life. Tell him I'm sorry I couldn't stay. And tell Taehyun." She paused, fresh tears spilling over. "Tell my husband I never stopped loving him, that every difficult moment, every secret, every lie by omission was to keep our family safe. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him to forgive himself for whatever he thinks he should have done differently. And tell him." Hana's voice dropped to a whisper, her hand reaching toward the camera as if she could touch them through time and space. "Tell him to let himself be happy again. Even if that means—" The video cut off, just stopped, mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-confession. The screen went black, then displayed a message. "Files encrypted. Password required." Taehyun stared at the dark screen, his entire world fracturing. Hana had been murdered. His wife had been murdered because she discovered corruption in his own organization, and she died protecting their son from the same fate. "Taehyun," Malia whispered, but he couldn't respond, couldn't breathe, couldn't. Minsik woke with a cry, sensing the tension. Malia tried to soothe him, but he only cried harder, little face scrunching up in distress. Taehyun forced himself to move, to think, to be the man his wife had believed he was. He pulled out his phone and texted Junho, "Secure the house. Trust no one. We're coming back. I'll explain everything." Then he turned to Malia. "We need to leave. Now, if this phone was being tracked." "It wasn't," Malia said quietly. "Hana was too smart for that. She would have disabled everything before hiding it." "You can't know that for certain." "Yes, I can, because I knew her. Because she was careful. Because..." Malia's voice broke. "Because she was my best friend, and she died trying to protect the people she loved, and I won't let that be for nothing." The passion in her voice, the fierce determination, it struck something deep in Taehyun's chest. This woman, this incredible, brave, beautiful woman who'd walked into his life like a storm and turned everything upside down. "Then we do this together," he said roughly. "We find that password, we decrypt those files, and we burn down everyone who hurt her." "Together," Malia agreed, and when their eyes met, it was a vow. They left the bank quickly, Taehyun's security detail surrounding them as they moved to the car. But as they pulled away from the curb, Taehyun's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered without thinking. "Yes?" A digitally disguised voice came through. "Mr. Park, I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Who is this?" "Someone who made sure your wife understood the price of betrayal. And now it seems her little friend has inherited that burden. Such a shame. Malia Okafor is quite lovely. It would be tragic if she met the same fate." Taehyun's vision went red. "If you touch her, then give me the phone. Simple exchange, the phone for their lives. You have 24 hours. The call disconnected. Malia stared at him with wide eyes. That was him. Whoever killed Hana. "Yes." Taehyun's voice was ice, and he just made the last mistake of his life. They returned to the mansion in tense silence. Taehyun immediately called an emergency meeting with only his most trusted men, Junho and 2 others who'd been with him since the beginning. He explained everything. The phone, the video, the threat, the conspiracy. Meanwhile, Malia retreated to the nursery with Minsik, trying to process everything she'd learned. Hana's face on that screen, her voice, her tears, the weight of her final wishes pressing down like stones. She looked down at the baby in her arms, this precious child who'd lost his mother to violence and greed, who deserved so much more than the darkness surrounding him. "I won't let them hurt you," she whispered fiercely. "I promise, whatever it takes." Minsik cooed, tiny hand reaching up to touch her face, and her heart cracked open completely. This wasn't duty anymore. This wasn't obligation to a dead friend. This was love. Pure, fierce, maternal love. She understood now why Hana had done everything she'd done, why she'd kept secrets and told lies and died protecting her family, because love demanded it. Downstairs, Taehyun was formulating a plan, but he couldn't focus. His mind kept circling back to that video, to Hana's final words that got cut off. Tell him to let himself be happy again, even if that means what? Moving on? Finding someone else? Finding Malia? Had his wife known? Had she somehow seen what would happen? Had she sent her best friend here not just to protect their son, but to... No, that was too much. Too impossible. Except nothing about this situation was possible, and yet it was happening. "Boss," Junho said carefully, "what do you want to do about the exchange?" "We're not giving them the phone," Taehyun said flatly. "We crack the encryption first. Get every file off that device, then we destroy everyone involved. And if we can't crack it in 24 hours, we will. We have to." He dismissed the meeting and made his way back upstairs. The sun was setting, painting the mansion in shades of orange and gold. He found Malia in his study this time, Hana's phone on the desk in front of her, Minsik sleeping in her arms. "I've been trying to think of passwords," she said without looking up. "Birthdays, anniversary dates, pet names, nothing works." Taehyun moved to stand beside her, looking down at the phone that held his wife's final secrets. "There has to be something we're missing." "What if?" Malia's voice caught. "What if she never meant for anyone to crack it? What if the video was all she wanted us to have?" "No." Taehyun shook his head firmly. "She said the evidence was on here. She wanted it found. She wanted them exposed. Then why make it so hard? Because she was protecting it. Protecting us. If it were easy, the wrong people could access it." They stood in silence, the enormity of it all pressing down. Finally, Malia spoke again, voice barely audible. "She loved you so much, you know. She'd call me sometimes late at night and just talk about you, about how strong you were, how protective, how underneath all the danger and darkness, you had the biggest heart she'd ever known." Taehyun's throat tightened. "I failed her." No, you loved her. That's not failure. I couldn't protect her. You can protect her memory. You can protect her son. You can finish what she started. Malia finally looked up at him, tears on her cheeks, and you can let yourself be happy again, like she wanted. Their eyes locked, and everything unsaid hung between them. Attraction, grief, guilt, hope, fear, desire. Taehyun's hand lifted, fingers brushing her cheek, and Malia's breath caught. Minsik stirred between them, and they both looked down at him, this tiny human who connected them in ways that transcended logic. I don't know how to do this, Taehyun admitted. Feel this way about you while grieving her. Maybe you don't have to choose, Malia whispered. Maybe you can do both. Maybe that's what she wanted. For you to love again, not instead of her, but because of her. Before he could respond, before he could pull her closer or push her away or make sense of any of it, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo attachment. Taehyun's blood turned to ice as the image loaded. It was Hana, but not from the video. This was recent, a photo of her grave, and spray-painted across the headstone in red, the phone. Or everyone you love dies next. Oh God, Malia breathed, seeing the image over his shoulder. Taehyun's hands shook with rage. They desecrated his wife's grave, threatened his family, and they weren't going to stop. We need to move, he said roughly. Pack whatever you need for you and Minsik. We're leaving the mansion. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't find us. Not until we... He stopped, stared at the phone in Malia's hands, Hana's phone, and suddenly, impossibly, he knew. The password, he said. It's not a date or a name. Then what? He moved to the phone, typed in a series of numbers with trembling fingers. 11032, November 3rd, 2022. The day Minsik was born, but not written in the standard format. Written the way Hana used to write dates in her journal. Month, day, year, no spaces or slashes. The phone unlocked. Files upon files appeared on the screen. Audio recordings, photos, documents, everything. All of it. The evidence that had gotten Hana killed. Oh my God, Malia whispered. Taehyun's hands shook as he began scrolling. Names he recognized. Conversations recorded secretly. Bank transfers. Proof of betrayal from people he trusted with his life. And then he found it. The final recording. The one labeled simply, The Truth. He pressed play without thinking, and Hana's voice filled the room, but this time there was no video, just audio. Just her voice, scared and desperate. Malia? If you're hearing this, they're coming for me. Wait. Don't you dare scroll past this without telling me what you think just happened. Drop part 2 in the comments right now if you're ready for the absolute chaos that's about to unfold. Seriously though, what do you think Hana was about to say in that message? What secrets are on that phone? And who is this mystery person threatening Taehyun's family? I need to know what you're thinking because the theories in the comments are always wild. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your sign. Hit that subscribe button because part 2 is going to have you screaming at your screen. We're talking betrayals, revelations, forbidden romance at its peak, and a twist you will not see coming. Drop part 2 below and tell me, do you think Malia and Taehyun's kiss was wrong? Or do you think Hana planned this all along? Because I have thoughts, and I want to hear yours. See you in part 2, and trust me, you're not ready for what's coming.